Welcome everyone. It's Sherry Carroll for SimonsStamp.com, and I have a fun, funny Friday card for you today using some art impression stamps. So I've chosen this Stay Hydrated stamp set. It has this gorgeous gal with her big tumbler in hand. And also, this has a bunch of designs that you can add on top of your tumbler. There's also a lot of small messages about hydrating and ice and water. Super fun. This is the stamp set, so you have your nice large lady and then all your little pieces, and this comes with two dies to work with. The one die fits the outline of the gal, and then there's also a tumbler that you can cut out separately, and that also has a matching die. I'm using the smooth side of some watercolor cardstock to do my stamping. I'm also using our anti-static tool, and I'm just adding some powder to the background. I'll be clear embossing my ink. And to ink this up, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Nocturne ink. It's a really great black. So I'm going to ink up the stamp first, and then I'll just press around lightly with my fingers to get my design to stamp onto that paper. And once I have that stamped, I'll sprinkle this with some clear embossing powder from Simon Says Stamp and tap off the excess. And then I'll heat set this with my heat tool until it comes to a really nice glossy finish. And this is perfect for using with Copic markers and even watercolors. Be die cutting, so I'm going to tape down my align die on top of my little lady and run that through my die cut machine, and it cuts really nice and close. Next, I'm going to be doing some watercoloring, and I have my watercolor set here, a bowl of water and a number 2 paintbrush, and I'm going to start with her flesh colored tone. And if you add in your paint to your paper just with a wet brush onto dry paper, you can get really finely detailed. If it's too dark, you can go back in with a little bit of water and lighten that up. So I'm going to continue painting until I have her complete. I have stamped that extra tumbler and I've watercolored that. And right now I'm getting ready to add my stripes to the top. So I'm just going to place my stamp down. And then I'll ink up those stripes with some surf ink from Simon Says Stamp. I think this will go well with the blue that I've laid down. And then I'll close that door and press that stamp right onto my little mug or my tumbler. And now I have a really cute design on top. Since this tumbler has a handle, I'm just going to cut off that handle using my detail scissors, and this image will fit just perfectly right on top of the tumbler that the gal is holding. Next, I'm using some white cardstock, and I've cut that down to 4¼ by 5½, and I'm using the streaming embossing folder from Simon Says Stamp. I thought this folder would go really good with the hydrating theme of this card. So before I finish this off, I am going to do a little bit of ink blending. And I'm starting off with surf ink, and I'm using a really light hand, and I'm going over those raised area of the paper, and those will grab onto the ink a little quicker than those little valleys will. And next I'll switch over to some SEAFOAM ink, and I'm using the same brush. It's in the same color family, and I'm going to continue ink blending onto this panel until I like how it looks. To give this more of a water look, I am adding in some metallic paint. I have squirted these down with my mister, and I've used a wet paintbrush, and I'm just going to splatter on some of the blue paint. And before I use my next color, I'm just going to run over my panel using the low setting of my heat tool. And this is where the funny comes in. So I'm going to place my gal onto this panel about where I want her to be on my finished card. And I'm getting my paintbrush wet and I'm going into the white. And this white will be really glistening. And what I'm doing is I'm adding some splatters on top of her and the back panel at the same time, so that the water will match up and it will look like she's gotten sprayed. I love how she's holding her sunglasses as if she's going to protect her face from all the water. When you look at the panel straight on, you don't really see that white as much. You do see the blue, but when you turn it to the light, it really shows up. I'm going to be stamping H2O, and I'm using the Tim Holtz Sign Painter stamps, and these are cling, so I have taken out that extra piece of my MISTI so that I can use the cling stamps. So I'm going to place these onto the door, and I'm going to do a little bit different technique with these. So I'm going to start off with some surf ink, and I'm going to just ink the top of them. That's why I have them lined up like this for my paper. So I'm going to hit this a few times, and you can see that I've only inked up the top portion. Now I'm going to use my blending brush, and I'm going to blend the ink downwards just a little bit. And this will give me a really nice ombre look. And once you have those inked and blended, you can press down on the door. And now you get that really fun ombre look on those numbers and letters. These stamps do have coordinating dies. They come in 2 different sets. I have put the link down below so you can buy everything all at once. This is a really great size stamp and die set for a lot of your card making. So I've put my dies down and I'm taping them down with a little bit, of yellow tape. I want to make sure I get these aligned really well before I die cut. Next, I'll remove my letters from the dies, and I've also cut the Fancy Thanks die from Simon Says Stamp just out of white paper, and I'll be putting this below. And instead of just doing 1 layer, I have cut out 3 of that Thanks die. I'm using my Simon Says Stamp craft tacky glue, and I'm just going on some of these larger portions of those letters. And then I can place another layer right on top. I do love using the wet glue. It does give me time to maneuver my letters and make sure everything matches up before the glue dries. And then I'll repeat the process on that second piece and put the third piece over top. And once again, I'll use my craft tacky glue and I'll add some glue to the back of my thanks. And once I have that well covered, I can place this onto my card, and I want this to sit right under her foot. So I'll make sure that I get this nice and straight before the glue dries. I've cut up some foam tape and I've put it to the back of my lady, and I'm just peeling off that backing paper. And then I can align her and press her down in place on my panel. For my letters and numbers, I've used some foam strips, and these fit perfectly on the skinny little pieces. And I've started with the 0 first down at the bottom so that I can make sure that I'll fit it all in. So it will be saying H2O going from top to bottom. And now I can add my panel to an A2 card. And for this, I do like to use the Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue because it gets into all those little crevices of the embossing folder. So I make sure I get it really well covered around the outside and also some on the inside. Oops, I have my little dies sitting here. But I can put this down onto my card and make sure that it lines up. And once again, the wet glue allows you a little bit of wiggle room if you need to make some adjustments. Here she is in all her glory with all her water and hydration, standing on top of the thanks, which is a little bit sarcastic for the splashes of water that I've added to her, which really shows up at an angle with that white metallic paint. I do have all my supplies listed in the description box below, along with a link to our blog post. And as always, thanks so much for watching.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at SimonsSaysStamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.